people, because the thing is that whether he thinks in his mind that I was a car salesman and people wouldn't come to me, or for whatever reason, I didn't even bother correcting him. Part of me, Carrie, would have liked to have said, oh no, I didn't sell cars. I've never sold cars. I never wanted to be a car salesman. Reason why is that nobody trusts a car salesman. You know, if I wanted to be known for a liar, I mean, I've already, known bad enough as it is. I'm not going to add to my list of miseries. But part of me says, well, the thing is that if I tell him that, what have I gained? Am I defending myself? No, I'll just accept it that I was that kind of person, Carrie, and just move on with it. I didn't even try to correct these things. There is a point within all of us. The big thing that happened in me was that girl back there. Dar, there was a point where I had lived my life as Monty wants to live. And I remember meeting Amber, and she telling me about she had a little girl. And at the time, I was in, we would call it a state of being backslidden. I was a Christian as a young boy, as a teenager, and then I fell away from all of it. When I met Amber and I met Bailey, I knew that right then I had a chance, David, to do something right. I knew that I could be a daddy. Carrie, I didn't know how to be a daddy. I know what my daddy was. Was my daddy a good man? My daddy was the best man that he could be. But the problem with me and my daddy was we was too much alike. And I don't know if y'all have ever been around somebody that was just like you. Isn't it funny? If you're ever around somebody who's just like you, you end up don't liking them. So what does that tell you? That they're just like you and you don't like them. So the thing is that when I seen her, I heard this thing. Here's your chance. Here is your chance to change. Dara, I knew I wanted to change. I knew I needed to change. Was I wanting to change? Yes, I wanted to change, or I wouldn't have recognized it. Did I know how bad I needed to change? I think so. Because I knew that if I wanted to get through this world, to make it through, because I think that there's a point in all of us that no matter how hard or how far we push it away and try to hide it, I think that there is this point in all of us that if we were saved as a younger person, no matter how far we get away from God, I don't think God ever gets away from us. And I think he's always there moving around us, Carrie. And we can feel it. Some days it's closer, some days it's further away. And so I used this little girl and the opportunity and the weight of that little girl to start my processes of being a different, better person. So I've learned that you use processes, you use whatever it is, David, that causes you to get to this. It's just like I was telling Dar this morning. When Dar came and started visiting, one of the things that Amber and I would do, and we talked about Dar, we talked about all you different guys. But see, y'all guys, y'all know us. We all know that what we are, and we don't put on no airs. But the thing is that Amber had made a statement about, when people come in, they see the church. So what we've been doing for these last 2.5 days, if y'all have not noticed, we cleaned church up. We've got air conditioning in both rooms up there now. They got heaters in both rooms now. Which we don't need heaters right now, they need air conditioners. But the thing is that Amber has a door. Why does Amber have a door? Because when Amber didn't have a door, what happened was that we let some friends use the church once, and they decided to cut the door in half. Because they wanted to be able to put people past their babies through the hole in the door. which I get that, and they wanted to keep the bottom half, to where the kids couldn't crawl out. Well, what we have here is we have a situation here to where people want to walk in a class. And there ain't nothing more distracting when you're trying to teach a class than somebody walks in or you got kids who want to walk out. And so now Amber has her door. But we use that as a motivation to cause us. We use Dar, we use all you guys. And even when Dennis walked in here Friday, and he was looking at the church. And the church was a mess. Y'all heard Amber talk about, hey, look, guys, we're in construction. We're trying to get all this stuff done. And the thing is that we use what we have to use to accomplish the goal. And I think that that's what God does inside of us. He uses situations and circumstances to teach us lessons. So today, we're going to go back into a lesson. And I am going to explore something like we always do. I have been asked, well, Monty, why do you always talk about the Hebrew alphabet so much? The reason I do that is because I had prayed. And I said, God, I want to study the Bible again. I want to be interested in the Bible. And I used to write sermons, and I just got so tired of it, and I got so I would never preach them, and I would just study this thing, and I got to where I wouldn't study the Bible anymore. The Bible wasn't, Doris, kind of like what we talked about, where you went to church all them time, you 16 years old, said, look, I've had enough. This is too much. And the thing is that I had lost contact, and I'd lost the love of studying the Word of God. Because, I don't know about y'all. How hard is it for you guys to study the Word of God? So, I found a way for it to be interesting. I found a way, and it started opening the doors to me. So much that I have built these routines in my mind. And think about this thing. Dar, you can make a lot of changes and designs to a hammer, right? But basically, there's several types of hammers. But in a carpenter, you're either going to have the claws is going to be curved, one of them is going to be straight. How much more can you do to a hammer other than the basic? Because at this point, a hammer is pretty much, you can modify it, but yet the basic shape, the basic design is pretty much there. It is pretty much a consistent tool. A saw. You can have a saw, and the basic functions of a saw is to cut something. The only thing that's different, so do you know that there is the difference between an English or an American saw and a Japanese saw?
Yeah.
What's the difference, Dar?
You pull a Japanese saw.
The teeth are designed to cut backwards, and it cleans out as you cut. It's more efficient. An American saw cuts on the downstroke. It's harder. If you've ever used a hand saw, you will know this one thing if it's ever happened to you. Because when you start a handsaw, you don't know how to get it straight on that line. And so what you do, you put it there and you put your thumb beside it, don't you? As a guide. Dar, how often will that saw buck because you're pushing too hard on it? And what does that saw do?
Tears up the wood.
But not only does it tear up the wood, have you ever felt it and you push too hard and the saw comes over and there goes that thumb?
Yeah.
And if you've got a good saw, Lance, that good saw is sharp. That's why the Japanese would pull, because you could put your thumb on there and you would have a less chance to tear out on your wood, and it was safer. But a saw is a saw. Outside of them things, can you really perfect a saw? No, the principle is laid down. And it has survived how long? I mean, you think about it, a saw is a saw is a saw. But yet it is a thing that is evolved, and then once it was created, and once it's gotten to this point, it's there. I mean, it's proven itself. A saw, you can take a hand saw and do anything you want to with it. Just work. When God creates something, it is said that a carpenter uses tools to accomplish the thing to build a home. He's given all these tools. Each tool has a specific purpose. If I wanted to describe a word, and think about this thing. What are we called? We're called God's people. The Jews were called God's people. We are Gentiles. Why are we Gentiles? Because we are non-Jews. God is not a Jewish God, but his people were called Jews because they were God's people. So, if God wanted to create something and to create his desire is to build a habitation. In other words, a place where he can dwell with men and women. All right? So that's called a house. Wanted to build a dwelling. If you look at it, this is the Aleph. It's the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet. This is a bet. So we call it the alphabet. The Hebrews calls it the alphabet. It means basically this represents basically God. This represents God's plans. We're going to talk about that deeper. And this means house or God's dwelling. It represents the tools to build God's dwelling. Does that make sense? That's what the alphabet is. The alphabet has 22 letters in it. Our alphabet has how many? Our alphabet has how many? 26. Okay. So if there are 22 letters, and I'm building a story because once you see this, you're going to go, okay. There's 22 letters. The alphabet is split into two groups of 11. All right? The first 11 letters, in essence, is discovering God. You're discovering God. You're discovering the nature of God. You're discovering. So you think about it. As a child, you spend your first years discovering what you are. Okay? Then, once you discover what you are, there's a point that stops, right? Now that you've quit being a child, you become an adult. Now you have to live everything that you've learned. Does that make sense? So you go out and you have children, Carrie. You have children, then what do you do to your children? It says that if you love your children, you teach your children. You give them tools. God gave the Hebrew people the alphabet to help them to teach their children about God. There is the difference between the Hebrew alphabet and the English alphabet. The English alphabet is the tool that we use to build words. We use words to create an image of things, don't we? So we use letters to build the idea. If I spell a word, ICE, what does that mean? Instantly, it tells you your code. But all of a sudden, if we go, if I say ice cream, what do you think?
Young.
Huh?
Young.
You think young. But the problem is that it's two words. It is ice, which means frozen, okay? and cream. So ice cream is frozen cream. Am I correct? Mm-hmm. That's how our alphabet works. The problem is that our alphabet is by its nature excluded from God. So as an example, if the first letter in the alphabet is the Aleph, if the first letter is the Aleph, it is represented by two things. There's three letters in the Aleph right here. These are called yuds. A yud, by its shape, looks like this, looks like this, looks like this. If I show you this and I say, well, what is this? It represents hand. It represents flame. It really represents, if you look at it, this is going to be a bad design. You can see how it kind of starts looking like a flame. Bad design, but you understand my point. So, the first thing that you represent, this first letter, it represents there is a flame above. The flame above means God. Okay? The flame below is a flame trying to go up. Flames will always go up. This is a yud. Means a hand of God. It means a flame. The one below is Yehudim. In other words, a Jew. So God is above Yehudim. This represents heaven. This represents earth. This is spiritual. And this is physical, right? So, we are physical. We're down below God. God is above us. He represents spiritual. So, if we've got these two, doesn't it seem like there's always something that separates us from God? There's something that separates us from God. It means Vav. Vav, it looks like a line that separates. That is the description of what we were. Separated from God. Here's God, here's us, and we can't reach Him. We can't get to Him. So, Dar, how do we reach God? How do we get to God if there's something that separates us? What is the thing that separates us from God? What is the thing that separates us from God? Y'all know it's a three-letter word, and we all hate to hear it. Sin. Sin separates us from God. So, the problem is that God's Word does not, we tend to think, well, this represents us, this is God, this is us, and we are separated by our sin. That's traditionally how we think about God, isn't it? We always want to tend to think about ways, y'all have heard me say it before. There's that old saying that the only prayer that God will ever hear of a person that is in sin is a prayer of forgiveness. That's the only prayer. The prayer of repentance is the only prayer that God will hear of a sinner. Because we always talk in terms of what separates us from God. Why do we always talk about what separates us from God? Because we're looking at it from a human perspective. The human perspective is always, I used to have this friend. Well, what separated you? Think about that. Is that not true? Where did our friendship go wrong? Well, I was married once. Well, what happened? I had this car. What happened? Well, I wrecked it. What separates you? This represents future. This represents past. What separates you from your past and your future? What separates these two? Something always separates these two. The problem is that is not how God works. We've created this God of separation. We've created this God that we know that there is this line between us, because when I instantly said this, you instantly think there's something keeping me from reaching God. We've all said this. Until we look at this image of this picture, and I used to have the picture around. Yes, I still have it. Y'all recognize this?
Yep.
Y'all recognize this picture? Zeke did this. And I love the story. This is the story. This is God. God is reaching down. This is man in his fallen state. He's reaching up to God. But do you notice which one is the aggressor? The one on the right, correct? Mm-hmm. How do you tell the difference? Think about it like this. Lance, you see the hand like that. Mm-hmm. Put your hand in that shape. All right? I'm reaching out to grab your hand. What is Lance's hand saying? Yeah. I don't really want your help. I know I need it, but I don't want to do it. Huh?
He's got arthritis.
Yeah, he's got arthritis. He's Fred Sanford. But the point is that this is a total description of the elect. When this painting was originally done, it interpreted, again, our view of that letter there. Here's the lower Yehudim, us, trying to reach up to Yud, God, and there is a separation between us. Huh?
She thought it was the same person this whole time.
Yeah, I thought it was like dead Jesus.
No, that is the picture of God reaching down to man.
Who did it? Michelangelo?
Huh?
Who is the original painter of it?
I said it once, I think I got it wrong. Yes, sir. Hey, Bixby. Who painted the picture of God reaching down to man? Stupid thing. Y'all found it yet?
Michelangelo. I was right.